Hello and welcome back to LUKE-N-SHAE'S place. Thank you so much for stopping by. So glad you can join me this evening. And before I begin, if you haven't already, go ahead and click that like button. Don't be shy. Click that like button so that I can be in the algorithm so that other viewers can find this content. And go ahead and comment. Put a heart down in the comment section. Also, just give feedback and we will reply. And don't forget to subscribe. It's 100% free. If you like the content that we're sharing, go ahead and subscribe, and don't forget to click that notification bell so that you get notified when we're posting. And why not share? That helps grow our platform as well. So I have a banger reaction video. I'm going to react to a video for you guys, and just the Nottoway Plantation, right? We know that that's been trending, and those who are my viewers already, you know that I like to have a day or two to actually gather information and just take this in. I see it trending and different things, and I wanted to bring to you one of the best videos I thought that was out here that would give value, that would add value to actually open our eyes to what that plantation really had going on, a little bit of history and other things that people were saying that were going on there. So we're going to take a look at that. But the biggest thing that we're talking about, it's not even about it's not even about the plantation. It is about locations that people use for their leisure times, whether it be vacation, weddings. And the biggest thing too is not just that, but there's still places that people like to go to. I want to dive into first. Let's go into the plantation. Let's see what some of our ancestors have been released from, because that's just a whole thing. A lot of people are celebrating. Some people are not happy because they're like, that's a historic, but for a lot of us, we're looking at it like, and I've heard the Usher song, just people are saying, just let that burn. People had weddings there, and I can't fathom what someone, and listen, I'm not knocking what you choose to do, but after you watch this video, and I thought this video was very telling, I wouldn't be having anything there first and foremost. But let's watch this. I got this video, the content creator, again, you guys can look in the description. Any videos that I'm sharing, it'll be in the description section. And this first video is going to be coming from great platform. He's doing the darn thing over there. Eugene from Kenya. You guys can check him out. I'll put his information in the description section. So I'm going to just check out, because I like the video that he shared about this. So let's check that out. All right, let's go.
Y'all ever hear about the deceased enslaved coachman who still thinks he's on the job to this day? Get your popcorn. On today's episode of Plantations that should have been burnt to the damn ground but are now used as bed and breakfasts, event centers, and wedding venues, we have the Nottoway Plantation in White Castle, Louisiana, right off the Mississippi River. This place is massive, y'all. It is actually the largest standing plantation to date. It's 53,000 square feet, has 64 bedrooms, 12 hand-carved fireplaces, amongst a whole bunch of other stuff. It is really huge. A lot of people do stay here because it is a bed and breakfast as well, but this is a very hot spot for weddings. To be honest, this is probably the most breathtaking plantation I've ever seen in my life, y'all. Who would ever want to be married?
Obviously, this video was taken when the plantation was still standing, but yeah, just getting a little history of it and maybe some people's perspectives, people who have stayed there, and what they've been saying about their experience when they were actually staying there, or if they had a wedding or something there. So let's listen to what she's saying about this plantation. All right.
In a plantation, I don't know, but it happens. That's beautiful. That's really nice. Sensational. But like all plantations, this place has a wicked, evil past that has left a lot of souls behind, and the spirits pay reparation. The story starts out with John and Emily Randolph purchasing this plantation. Both of these people were very, very big socialites. They came from money. John's father, who was a senior, was appointed the federal judgeship of Mississippi by President James Monroe. It's not a lot of information on Emily's people other than her father gifted the couple 20 slaves and $20,000 as a wedding gift, which in today's currency is a lot of money. The plantation was to basically set roots and put their family, especially their kids, out into society. Now, initially, Emily's daddy wanted John to run a cotton farm, but John thought that it was oversaturated and decided to harvest sugarcane instead. So when they purchased Nottoway Plantation, they had 5,200 acres and 155 slaves to cater to those said acres. But these people were experiencing spiritual reparations far before the place was even reported haunted. During this time, America was in a civil war, and John pledged his finances, a bunch of money, and...
Okay, so let's brace ourselves because she's about to tell us about the haunting. She's saying, oh, okay, before the place was reported haunted. Okay, let's listen to this here. And listen, I know there's celebrations, and listen, let's watch this and see what we take away from this. All right, okay.
And his firstborn son to the Confederacy. He actually had all three of his sons fight in the war, but only one was killed, and that was the first son, which we know back then was the golden child, your heir. So this crushed John, but that didn't move him to treat his slaves well. Lynchings, beatings, grapings, unaliving, buck breaking, all of that was a normal, common thing at this plantation. This house remained with them up until 1889 after John's death, and Emily sold it. And for a time, it had deteriorated and almost was nothing, which would have served it right, but then someone bought it. We'll get to that later. Ghost number 1, the coachman. So if you don't know what a coachman is, it is the man that is driving the horse and carriage. And John had a very loyal coachman. To this day, people see this coachman at the gates waiting with the horse and carriage and everything, except there are no horses or carriages on this property. They hear the horses galloping in the middle of the night. They hear the wheels turning on the pavement. They hear the bell. This man shows up at least a couple nights a week. Guests, staff, everyone that steps foot on here has reported seeing him. Ghost number 2.
No, thank you. But I would say that's a loyal coachman if you're still showing up and you're not even alive. Listen, I am a wimp when it comes to ghostly stuff. So the music too is also, but at the end of the day, people are saying that they've seen and heard. No, thank you. Nope. All right, let's go.
The carriage house is haunted by a little slave girl. No one has the details on this little girl, but it's assumed that she was either lynched or died in a very, very slavish way. The little girl was reported to die over 150 years ago, but they see her playing in the carriage house. They've built a parking lot for their events, and they see her in the parking lot. There's also said to be security footage with her clear as day, skipping around the property, playing, acting as if she were still alive, like she doesn't even realize that she's not. But of course, they'll never let us see that because this is a major moneymaker for whoever owns it now. And who wants to have their wedding at a place that is full of black spirits? But she spooks security on a regular basis to the point that some of them have resigned. This is room 14 and ghost number 3. Remember earlier I told you guys someone bought this property. Well, in 1980, a lady named Odessa Owens purchased the property and turned it into what it is today. She eventually sold, but it was only under one condition: if the new owners would allow her to die in this room. And they did. But it's said that she never left. She never checked out.
Nope. Yeah, nope. She never left. She passed away but never left. No. But yeah, there's so many people that are upset that there's celebrations. No, let these spirits be free. Let them be free. Let's go.
Several brides, grooms, groomsmen, bridesmaids, staff, housekeeping have reported seeing a full apparition of Miss Odessa in this room. One housekeeper came out of the bathroom in this room and ensuite and seen a full body apparition sitting at the edge of the bed. She stood up and she dissipated into air. It scared her so much she quit. But there's also another spirit that occupies this room that they know is not Odessa. Whoever it is, they have taken a liking to women with long hair, and they love to play in their hair or touch the back of their neck or run their hands up the back of their neck into the...
And just imagine that there was weddings going on here. People were actually staying here. It was like a nice getaway, and no, all right.
To the back of their head. And it doesn't matter if you're in the shower, sitting down, like laying down. Whatever the spirit is has a thing for women with long hair. So much so, a bride was staying in this suite and decided by morning she was not getting married there. People have also reported looking in that mirror and in the back of them, they see an apparition of a woman. All in all, this place is haunted as hell, and I don't know one sane person with moral compass that would ever want to get married at a plantation. Because if I know spirit the way I think I know spirit, spirit is petty. I'd actually like to know the divorce rate of couples that get married on plantations, especially this one. But whatever. All in all, the story of Nottoway Plantation and its hauntings make me really sad for my enslaved people, because they are still working and moving along this property as if they don't understand that they are not alive anymore. It's almost like purgatory. And then this place is right off the Mississippi River, which is its own video and spiritual hub in itself. Like, why would you ever want to start your life with your significant other here? It's the brazen weirdness and low-key disrespect for me, but y'all do you. So if you ever want to fuck around and find out, you can get married at the Nottoway Plantation. Do good and be good.
Last night.
Well, they're not going to do that now. And I just hope that now that this has happened, and like I said, it's been trending. Now that we've seen this burn, we've been seeing that it burned up, everybody. It's been, so now that we've seen that, and I'm hoping that those spirits that she spoke of and the ghosts that people were seeing there and whatever was going on, that they can be free and maybe realize, okay, you don't have to do this anymore. You don't have to show up with that carriage. You don't have to, you got, they're saying a little girl playing out, whatever is going on or was going on there. I pray that they have been free, actually free. Yeah, just actually free. And all right, so again, not my cup of tea having a wedding. I mean, if I don't know, I don't know. But if I know something horrible happened at a place, I'm not going to have anything there. I don't want no parts of it. Not just for this reason, because people have spotted, just for the simple fact of the history and the history that happened there. I think it is disrespectful, because the history, and then to make it into like a resort and wedding venue, and you have people actually staying there, that's so distasteful, knowing what went on in and outside of that house, that plantation. But I have another video lined up for you guys, and again, places that you might still be going to today that horrible things have happened at. Someone's horror spot could be your actual leisure spot, your vacation spot. So now that we're kind of getting close to summer, the kids are about to be out of school. Some of you might have vacations planned, and some of you just might have lakes that you like to go to in the summer and swim at, and maybe boating and whatever else you might be doing there. Family fun, right? But what is the history of those lakes? And not saying all lakes, but do we know what actually is underneath the lakes that we're having fun at? So let's take a look at some lakes and see what could possibly be under the lake that you're swimming in. All right, let's take a look.
It's no mistake to say that the U.S. is a country that went from enslaving black people to wiping out the communities they built post-slavery. Today, most of its white citizens are prohibiting the teaching of that history while simultaneously promoting a false account of that history.
Over the past couple years, more Americans have become familiar with the story of the Tulsa Race Massacre, where a white mob burned a vibrant black community to the ground, which is crazy. Even crazier, dozens of other black towns have been erased off the American map, not by burning them down, but by hiding them underwater.
Imagine a world where the very foundations of your community are deliberately destroyed, where the memories of your ancestors are submerged beneath the waves, and where the price of progress is paid in the currency of displacement and despair.
If we've learned one thing today, it's never assume something is unsinkable.
This is the heartbreaking reality that has haunted countless black towns across America, forcibly flooded and drowned to create lakes, reservoirs, and other waterways.
There are over 100 drowned American towns, and many were destroyed in the name of something called development-induced displacement. That's when people
100 towns that basically were drowned, that they used to create lakes. And all right, I want to learn more about this, but that's disturbing, because one thing I know, and you can go back in the videos, the previous videos, I actually told a story about my family, and we always went to lakes. Growing up, that was a thing, family thing. And, I don't know if my parents I don't know if they knew about different things. I don't know, because that's something. There was a weird lake that we went to that my family never swam at. We never went there. And we actually almost had, myself and two of my siblings, that was almost our last day on this earth. But if you could go back, and you can watch the video, The Day I Almost Drowned. You can watch that, and that was at a lake that we weren't familiar with, but let's watch more here.
people have to leave their homes so the government can develop things like dams or parks or lakes.
The stories of these devastated communities, hidden beneath the surface of America's tranquil lakes, are a testament to the nation's troubled past, a past marked by systemic racism, environmental injustice, and the erasure of black identity and communities that thrived against the odds building their own schools, churches, and businesses, integrating patiently in surroundings that has done nothing other than enslave and despise them unendingly.
These
You've probably
towns are part of the Black American history they don't want to teach you. It's ugly and it's gross and we don't even know all of it. And the more we find out, the harder it is to love this place that would do those things to so many people.
In this video, we'll be taking a full dive into the painful histories of Black towns that were flooded to make lakes and honoring the legacies of those who called them home. We shall further explore the complex web of racism, politics, and environmental exploitation that led to these tragedies, amplifying the voices of those who fought to preserve their communities and way of life. Before we continue on this painful and memorable chapter of history, kindly consider offering your support by hitting on the thumb button. Share this video with your friends, families, and associates at large. Also subscribe to our channel if you are yet to, in order to access more eye-opening and mind-blowing contents on.
And again, guys, the content, you'll find that in the description, the video information that I'm playing now about these lakes and, well, these towns that were flooded. Okay, so we will definitely put that down there for you guys. All right.
On hidden Black narratives. Now let us uncover the history of the sad erasure of 20 Black towns, amongst a whole several other lots of them, that were drowned and turned into lakes, turning the Blacks in these towns hopelessly displaced, beginning with number 1, Oscarville, Georgia.
This is Lake Lanier. It's a lake in Forsyth County, Georgia, where people go swimming and boating and fishing and do a bunch of other lakey things. But before it was Lake Lanier, it was a town called Oscarville, Georgia.
On August 3rd, the body of a 27-year-old man was found in Georgia's Lake Lanier. Days earlier, he had disappeared and drowned while swimming. The week before, another man drowned in the lake, and a few days before that, on July 27th, a 24-year-old jumped into the lake where he was electrocuted and later died. For folks who are familiar with Lake Lanier, a Georgia landmark, these tragic deaths aren't surprising. Over the years, hundreds of people have died there, making Lake Lanier one of the deadliest lakes in the United States. Christmas Day,
That's horrible. Oof. Okay.
1964 is known as the deadliest day at Lake Lanier, when a driver lost control of their car while crossing a bridge. The car then flipped into the lake, where 5 children and 2 adults drowned. In 2012, the 11-year-old son of Tamika Foster, Usher's ex-wife, died at Lake Lanier. During the 11th anniversary of her son's death, Foster launched a petition to drain, clean, and restore the lake. Bearing in mind its history, one can only imagine what will be found if Lake Lanier is drained. Lake Lanier is a man-made 38,000-acre lake that attracts about 10 million visitors every year, bringing in a whopping sum of about $5 billion annually to North Georgia's economy. The lake is located in the affluent Forsyth County, which has the highest median income in metro Atlanta. Lake Lanier is a popular weekend destination known for fishing, boating, and so much more, including an eerie reputation that has deemed it as haunted in Georgia. This fact is especially interesting, considering that the body of water covers what was once a thriving Black community called Oscarville. The community, formed during the late 1800s, was filled with successful farmers, carpenters, and blacksmiths, until Oscarville's more than 1,000 residents were violently forced out by white Forsyth County residents.
Oscarville was a thriving, predominantly Black community with a church, a school, and dozens of homes, until the year 1912, when a very bad thing happened.
The lake's story perpetuates deep into the happenings of September 1912, when an 18-year-old white girl named Mae Crow was found injured after being assaulted in the woods less than a mile from her family's home. The wounds had been so severe that she later died, and as such, couldn't tell the tale of her ordeal in the woods. Despite the absence of witnesses or evidence, a 24-year-old black man, Rob Edwards, was arrested, but he was later taken from the county jail by a mob of white residents, brutally beaten with crowbars, shot repeatedly.
Wow, this is something, right? Ooh, learning this, I've never heard of this. Nope. And I visited different places, and no, I think this was the first year that I actually heard about the first lake, Lake Lanier. That's only because, just for the first time visiting, going to Georgia, I'm like, that's why that was a story that was told, but I never heard about it before that. And it's unfortunate, what happened to the young woman, the young girl, but this is just like people in that time, right? And you still have some of it today, like no evidence or anything, but they took this guy and, okay, somebody has to pay for this crime. Somebody has to pay for it, so. But let's see how this turns out, because it doesn't sound like it's going to be good, but let's learn. Let's get some information.
And dragged to the town square, where his mutilated body was lynched on a telephone pole. Additionally, Edward's wife, Jane Daniel, their neighbor Ed Collins, Jane's cousin Oscar Daniel, and Oscar Daniel's cousin Ernest Knox were arrested. Knox and Oscar Daniel, both teens, were convicted by all-white juries before being hung in front of about 5,000 spectators. After the trials and executions, white men, known as night riders, forced black families out of their homes by bringing their land, churches, and schools down to nothing but ashes.
The county went from having over 1,000 black residents in 1912 to 0 in 1920. After the black community had been run off, the white people of Forsyth County said, you know what we could use? A big old lake. So they made one, right where the town of Oscarville had just been. They flooded the area and literally covered up the entire town with water.
By the late 1950s, what was once Oscarville was flooded for the creation of Lake Lanier.
This is what it looks like right now. But the town is still under there. The homes and churches and schools, they're still down there. And now people...
Yes, you heard that correctly. The town is still under that lake. Think about that for a minute. Said the churches, everything that was there is under that water. Oh boy. Okay.
People go boating on top of them.
According to historians, many of the community structures were not removed, including unmarked graves, and in a recent CNN report, a longtime diver, Buck Buchanan, claimed that he sometimes felt body parts in the lake while underwater. He expressed that one could reach out into the dark and feel an arm or a leg, and it doesn't move. Decades after the incident, in 1987, on an episode of The Oprah Show, Oprah Winfrey visited Forsyth County, which at the time hadn't had a black resident in 75 years, and today, only 4.9% of the county's population is black, 9.7% is Hispanic, and an overwhelming 72.6% of the residents are white, with 63.9% identifying as non-Hispanic white people. Number 2, Coahuila, Benson, Alabama.
Ever heard of Coahuila, Alabama? It was once a thriving black community with a black college, the first black railroad, and literally hundreds of family homes. Today, it's Lake Martin. At least they had the decency to name it after a black person.
Coahuila, Alabama, nestled along the shores of Lake Martin in Tallapoosa County, holds a unique place in the history of Alabama. Coahuila was founded by an enslaved individual named John Jackson Benson, who later became a freeman. On gaining his freedom, He went on a journey to rescue his sister in Florida, who was separated during slavery, and they made their way back to Alabama, where John worked in coal mines, and after earning $100 from his work, he used the money to purchase a portion of the land he was enslaved on. After purchasing the land, he worked the land until it yielded a profit. Then he used the profit to buy more of the land. He repeated the process until he owned about 3,000 acres of the land. Benson soon built a farmhouse, sawmill, cotton gin, grist mill, brickyard, and school, helping
They're telling some history here, aside from, the tragedy of the towns being flooded with water. I just want you to listen how these towns were flourishing. These black people were thriving in their towns, okay? This man went and purchased land, a little bit of land, and then each time he got more money, he purchased more. And he was building up the community as he did so. And the town before, the one in Georgia, that town that's still underwater, those people were thriving in that town. Schools, churches, and everything, they were thriving, and that was literally washed away. But this is sad. Let's listen to more. And this is where, and like I said, people are enjoying these lakes, just boating and fishing. They're fishing. I heard that they're fishing. I don't even want to. No. Let's go.
Coahuila to grow into a community that housed black and white families. The community is a home to the first black-owned railroad started by William E. Benson and the black school Coahuila Academic and Industrial Institute. John Benson's son, William E. Benson, was the founding president of the Dixie Industrial Company. The Dixie Industrial Company was able to succeed by exporting lumber to Europe. Unfortunately,
imagine making $450,000
lost financial control due to their exporting ports being closed because of World War II, and Benson was replaced as president by the company's largest stockholder. The case was later taken to court, but the Dixie Industrial Company was eventually lost. Coahuila's hopes for future growth came crashing with the construction of Martin Dam on the Tallapoosa River in 1926. The Martin Dam was constructed by the Alabama Power Company to generate hydroelectric power. The dam created Lake Martin, one of the largest man-made lakes in the United States at the time of its completion. The creation of Lake Martin brought significant changes to the region. One of the biggest changes was the closing of the Coahuila community. The residents of Coahuila were displaced by the building of the Martin Dam and the financial troubles that were caused by the exporting ports being closed. Once the Martin Dam was completed, the flow of water from the dam flooded the community of Coahuila, leaving another black-owned community underwater. Number 3, Seneca Village in New York City.
And if you think this kind of thing only happened in the South, let me introduce you to a place called Central Park. Central Park used to have a black community in it called York Hill. But the city of New York destroyed York Hill so that they could build the Central Park Reservoir. Because if there's one thing New York needs, it's another place for ducks to hang out. When the residents of York Hill were kicked out of their homes, they fled.
My mind was more southern with this, and I was wondering if there was some, northern places, or, because I was thinking like, again, the lake that I went to when I was younger, I'm like, no, they probably wouldn't have done that there. I mean, I'm talking about New Jersey. I'm like, I don't know. I was just wondering if anything happened toward that way, but we're getting closer. Yeah. It's sad, right? Again, these towns are under the water. They're just under the water. Black towns, thriving black towns underwater. Yeah.
Fled to another black community nearby called Seneca Village. And then a few years later, New York destroyed Seneca Village too, so that they could build Central Park on top of it.
Before Central Park was created, the landscape along what is now the park's perimeter, from West 82nd to West 89th Street, was the site of Seneca Village, a community of predominantly African Americans, many of whom owned properties. By 1855, the village consisted of approximately 225 residents, made up of roughly 2/3 African Americans, 1/3 Irish immigrants, and a small number of individuals of German descent. One of few African American enclaves at the time, Seneca Village allowed residents to live away from the more built-up sections of downtown Manhattan and escape the unhealthy conditions and racial discrimination they faced there. The village was founded in 1825 when landowners in the area, John and Elizabeth Whitehead, subdivided their land and sold it as 200 lots. Andrew Williams, a 20
For my viewers that are used to checking out my videos, I just want you to know this. See how when really want to get history out, it's always these videos that seems like I keep getting the pauses and distractions. Just don't want me to give you this information, but we're going to get through this. By the grace of God, we're going to get through this today. All right, let's check it out.
5-year-old African-American shoe shiner bought the first 3 lots for $125. Also, Epiphany Davis, a store clerk, bought 12 lots for $578 and the AME Zion Church purchased another 6 lots. From there, a community was born. From 1825 to 1832, the Whiteheads sold about half of their land parcels to other African Americans, and by the early 1830s, there were no less than 10 homes in the village. There is a couple pieces of evidence that shows that residents had gardens and raised livestock in Seneca Village, and the nearby Hudson River was a likely source of fishing for the community. A nearby spring, known as Tanner's Spring, provided a water source. By the mid-1850s, Seneca Village comprised 50 homes and 3 churches, as well as burial grounds, and a school for African American students. For African Americans, Seneca Village offered the opportunity to live in an autonomous community far from the densely populated downtown. Despite New York State's abolition of slavery in 1827, discrimination was still prevalent throughout New York City and severely limited the lives of African Americans. Seneca Village's remote location likely provided a refuge from this climate. It also provided an escape from the unhealthy and crowded conditions of the city and access to more space both inside and outside the home. Compared to other African Americans living in New York, residents of Seneca Village seem to have been more stable and prosperous. By 1855, approximately half of them owned their own homes. With property ownership came other rights not commonly held by African.
More than half of them owned their own homes. That is a blessing. It is a blessing to hear that. You know, you hear about the towns that were flourishing and doing great. This is whenever we talk about our history and that's mentioned. Yeah, okay, well, you know, there's a few towns that, no, there was more than a few. There was a lot of towns that were doing great. They were owning their homes and businesses and farms, but we couldn't have that, right? That wasn't allowed. We weren't allowed to have that. But let's look at more here.
African Americans in the city, namely the right to vote. The fact that many residents were property owners contradicts some common misperceptions during the mid-19th century that the people living on the land slated for the park were poor squatters living in shanties. While a few residents lived in shanties and in crowded conditions, most lived in 2-story homes. Census records show that residents were employed, with African Americans typically employed as laborers and in service jobs, the main options for them at the time. Records also show that most children who lived in Seneca Village attended school. By the early 1850s, the city began planning for a large municipal park to counter unhealthful urban conditions and provide space for recreation. In 1853, the New York State Legislature enacted a law that set aside 775 acres of land in Manhattan from the 59th to the 106th streets between 5th and 8th Avenues to create the country's first major landscape public park. The city acquired the land through eminent domain, the law that allows the government to take private land for public use with some compensation paid to the landowner. This was a common practice in the 19th century and had been used to build Manhattan's grid of streets decades earlier. There were roughly 1,600 inhabitants displaced throughout the area. Although landowners were compensated, many argued that their land was undervalued. Ultimately, all residents had to leave by the end of 1857, and with that, the Seneca Village was torn down for the construction of Central Park. The only thing that remains of the community is a commemorative plaque, dedicated in 2001 to the lost village.
Definitely learning here. Learning. Are you guys still with me? For those that just joined, go ahead and click that like button. Click that like button so you can put me in the algorithm. All the videos, the 2 videos that I'm posting will be in the description section so you can check that out. But let's open our minds and receive more. Let's learn more.
Number 4, Susanna, Alabama. Beneath some of Lake Martin's deepest waters, the Blue Creek town of Susanna was a thriving business center before the construction of Martin Dam nearly 100 years ago. According to Alabama Living magazine, more than 900 bodies were moved from cemeteries before the land was submerged. The town once included a gold mine, a school, 2 mercantiles, a grist mill, a flour mill, a sawmill, a blacksmith shop, and a church. Number 5, Vanport, Oregon. A perfect storm of racism, poor urban planning and flood management, bad weather and community history conspired to construct the Vanport disaster. As World War II ramped up, Portland shipyards began pumping out ships as fast as they could. Laborers flocked to Portland for the abundant shipyard jobs, and so workforce housing was desperately needed, especially for black workers, who were excluded from living in most Portland neighborhoods by racist policies and laws. Located between Vancouver and Portland, Vanport was a massive wartime housing development built to address the region's pressing need for affordable accommodation. Constructed in a remarkable 110 days, Vanport consisted of 10,000 inexpensive units, situated on a diked floodplain of the Columbia River. Vanport grew to be the largest black community in the state, home to institutions like the Vanport Extension Center, which later became Portland State University. After the war, residents started to move out of Vanport to areas with greener pastures, but other housing options were still limited for black people and other people of color, such as Japanese Americans who had been released from internment camps. So, many of them stayed back. By 1948, the Vanport population included 12,600 whites, 5,000 African Americans, and 900 Japanese Americans. Then came the flood. In late May 1948, snowmelt and heavy rainfall caused the Columbia to rise and overflow its banks. Despite being in a floodplain, Vanport was not evacuated. Even worse, residents were specifically told that they were safe, therefore leaving the human residents unevacuated. Moreover, hundreds of horses stabled at a nearby racetrack were removed before the flood. The tragic result led to the loss of many lives.
So they were told that they were going to be safe. You're safe. They removed the horses, but they didn't evacuate these people. That's sad. That doesn't sound like an accident to me. It doesn't. But the horses were saved, though. Keep that in mind, the horses. They had compassion for the horses, but not the people.
And the total destruction of the Vanport development. The flood not only destroyed physical homes and everything in them, but also scattered a vibrant community. Number 6, Eureka, Montella, and Lackawack. To provide water for New York City, the construction of the Rondout Reservoir displaced the 3 growing African-American communities of Eureka, Montella, and Lackawack that were in the area. All structures were removed, all fences, trees, hedges, even tall weeds and roads were dug up to maintain the purity of the future water supply. Property owners were required to put in claims for the value of their lands and were usually paid less than half of the asking price. Provision was also made to pay 6 months' lost wages for resulting loss of employment in businesses closed because of the project. An attempt by the village of Ellenville to stop the reservoir on the grounds that it would hinder the future public health, welfare, and development of the village did not succeed. To add salt to injury, residents were denied easy access to the new roadways by the placement far within the taking line, although the local towns attempted to fight this in court. In the end, the interests of New York City and its need for water trumped the concerns of the locals. Number 7, Willow Grove, Tennessee. The community.
Why did Amazon send me $20,000? Because
Create safe havens and economic opportunities for themselves, away from the racial segregation and discrimination that pervaded much of the South. It was a small community situated along the Cumberland River and was Clay County's second largest town at its peak, with a grist mill, school, several churches, and a few businesses. The town's promising future was halted in the 1940s when the plan to build the Dale Hollow Reservoir was announced. Residents were forced to relocate prior to the demolition of their homes and businesses and the flooding of the area. The townspeople even held a farewell celebration at a community picnic in the schoolyard in 1942. Today, the area is still submerged, and the remnants of Willow Grove, now known as the town that drowned, are hidden beneath the reservoir's surface, making it an underwater ghost town, remembered by local history and the occasional tale from old residents. With a visit to the area, you may spot the tops of buildings and structures still intact under the surface. Number 8, Guild in Marion County, Tennessee. Located along the Tennessee River, the Hales Bar Dam in Guild, Tennessee is steeped in history and haunting tales. Once a revolutionary hydroelectric facility, it was plagued by construction accidents and later decommissioned and abandoned in the 1960s. As the dam was constructed, the flooding of the area below the dam submerged an entire city, including the town cemetery. Known as Long Cemetery, it was not emptied of bodies before the flooding, and many say the spirits of those buried still haunt the.
This is disturbing, to say the least. It's disturbing. Who knew? I didn't realize so many lakes had towns under it, black towns underneath these lakes. Yeah. And you got bodies from, and not only that, but the cemeteries. You lay your family members to rest, and you got this, let's make a lake over. Yeah, this is disturbing. It is.
The site to this day. Visitors often speak of ghosts and unexplained phenomena near the powerhouse and surrounding waters. With its combination of historical significance and supernatural lore, Hales Bar Dam invites exploration for paranormal enthusiasts and curious guests alike. Number 9, Lewiston, Tennessee. The community is situated in Big Ridge State Park in Maynardville and is an underwater town that tells a story of loss and nostalgia. Once home to a vibrant community called Lewiston in the early 19th century, it was submerged in the mid-1900s when the area was flooded to create a reservoir, leaving behind remnants of homes and buildings beneath the water's surface. At the time, about 70 residents were displaced and relocated to surrounding counties, Remnants of the structures, including several businesses, schools, and churches, were covered by water and still remain below the surface of the lake to this day. Exploring the area, one gets a certain eerie stillness of the lake that often gives way to whispers of the past, with tales and struggles of those who once lived in the town surfacing in the minds of visitors. Many report sightings of old structures just below the water. The combination of serene natural beauty and ghostly lore makes Loyston Sea at Big Ridge State Park a fascinating destination to add to your itinerary. Number 10, Tharp, Tennessee. Nestled in the rolling hills of Middle Tennessee.
There's a bunch of them in Tennessee now. Oh. There's one too many. One too many, okay? When they said the one in Georgia at first, that was one too many. Nobody's town should be under a lake. It sucks. It really does suck. And you specifically picked black towns to do this. So you can't tell me that wasn't by design. Oh, now let's not do it here. Right here is perfect. It seems like every time they did this perfectly, it was just the black towns that you're doing this in. Not good. It's sad. It's really sad.
Tennessee. Tharp was once a thriving community, originally known as Iron Mountain, named for the giant furnace that was constructed in the mid-1800s due to the discovery of iron ore deposits in the area. The small town had a post office, general store, school, mills, churches, and even a doctor's office, which still stands today. Eventually, after the Civil War, a lumber company purchased the old furnace lands, and eventually a railroad tie company used the area to make railroad ties. Though the town was never incorporated, by the early 1900s, Tharp had a blacksmith shop and even a tobacco prizing factory. However, by the late 1960s, when the land between the lakes was created, the small but active town seemingly disappeared off the map. Today, remnants of the historic town can still be visited via Tharp Road, where vestiges of this once thriving small Tennessee community remain, offering a glimpse into its past.
Some of these we're not so far removed from. I'm hearing some of these dates. 1960, it disappeared. The town disappeared off the map. That's not that far ago. That's not that long ago. Some of these are not that long ago.
Old Jefferson, Murfreesboro. Once a small town located at the original seat of Rutherford County, the town was abandoned and burned down in anticipation of a flood that never came. In the 1950s, some group of construction engineers told residents that their town would be permanently flooded to create Percy Priest Reservoir. Eventually, the town was torn down, hauled away, and its remnants were burned down. However, as the new reservoir filled up, the water did not extend as far as originally projected due to underground caves at what is now Long Hunter State Park. Although there are rumors that some old foundations and some remnants are still left in the area, a visit to the site of Old Jefferson wouldn't be complete without checking out Percy Priest Lake and other sites like Long Hunter State Park. Number 12, Old Danville Grain Elevator in Stewart County. Danville, Tennessee was once a thriving river town situated on the banks of the Tennessee River, near Kentucky Lake, and a central link between Memphis and Louisville. The town was an important commercial center, known for its bustling docks and recognizable grain elevator, which was a major hub for local agriculture. However, when the construction of Kentucky Lake in the 1940s led to the flooding of the area, much of Danville became an underwater town. Despite the town's disappearance, the large, iconic grain elevator still stands tall above the waters of Kentucky Lake, a striking reminder of the town's past and a notable landmark for those visiting the area. Number 13, Johnsonville. Johnsonville, Tennessee, was a small rural town established in the early 19th century. It was situated in Humphreys County, near the confluence of the Tennessee and Cumberland rivers. The town grew steadily, with a population of around 1,000 residents by the mid-20th century. However, the town's fate was sealed in the 1940s, when the Tennessee Valley Authority, TVA, began constructing Kentucky Lake. The lake was created by building a dam on the Tennessee River, which would flood a vast area, including Johnsonville. In 1945, the town was officially abandoned and its residents relocated. The buildings, homes, and infrastructure were either demolished or left to be submerged by the rising waters. Today,
I have a challenge for you. I want to know if you'd like to.
You guys still with me? We're still getting an understanding of what actually went on and some of the spots that some of you might visit in the summer. Some of you might be familiar with some of these locations and lakes. So definitely learning and seeing exactly, seeing some history that's not so good, right? We're seeing history. And again, going back to the first video that I shared, when you see that Nottoway plantation trending, when it's burning, you have to kind of look at the history to it all. The things that our ancestors had to endure. Thriving towns, you're being kicked out of your town, or some of them weren't even kicked out. You're just flooding the towns, or you're moving the horses, but then not really evacuating the people, right? So when you see people celebrating, sometimes just think about that. Just think about you and your ancestors, and think about if you ever had a place where your ancestors might have been tortured and just horror, just horrific things were being done to them. Is that a place that you would want to see people celebrating and having weddings at, or riding boats over? And it's not cool at all. It's not.
Today, Kentucky Lake is a popular recreational destination, attracting tourists for boating, fishing, and other water sports. Meanwhile, the remnants of Johnsonville remain hidden beneath the lake's surface, a ghostly reminder of the town that once thrived there. Number 14, Elkmont. Nestled in the Great Smoky Mountains, National Park is a fascinating remnant of a once thriving logging community and a popular vacation spot in the early 20th century. Now the area is largely abandoned, a true Gatlinburg, Tennessee ghost town, which offers a glimpse into the past with its dilapidated cabins and historic structures. The National Park Service has been in the process of restoring many of these historic buildings since the early 1990s, with 16 cabins now preserved, restored, and open for total public access. As you wander through the overgrown paths and old homes, the eerie silence is often interrupted by whispers of the town's former residents, believed to linger in the shadows. Ghost stories abound, with visitors reporting mysterious sounds and apparitions, especially in the old resort buildings. Elkmont is a must-visit for those intrigued by both nature and the supernatural, inviting exploration of its haunted tales. Number 15, Elba Woods, North Dakota. Elba Woods was one of several Native American towns along the Missouri River, which were permanently flooded following the completion of the Garrison Dam in North Dakota in 1953. The town was established in 1891 to be the local Indian headquarters for the region's Hidatsa, Mandan, and Arikara tribes. By the 1950s, many of the natives in town had become Christians and operated the gas stations, stores, post office, and other businesses typical of a rural town of a few hundred people, as well as the reservation's main school and hospital, also located at Elba Woods. The reservoir that formed behind the Army Corps of Engineers Garrison Dam was named after Sacagawea, the legendary Shoshone Indian woman who guided Lewis and Clark through the mountains of Montana. 200-mile-long Lake Sakakawea, the third largest reservoir in the country, flooded a quarter of the Fort Berthold Indian Reservation, forcing the relocation of over 325 families, which was about nearly 80% of the population on the reservation at that time. Many moved to a newly established community called Newtown, where now about 1,500 members of the three affiliated tribes live a modern life with a large casino. Number 16, Kennett, California. Though the old mining town of Kennett was a faded relic of its boomtown self, by the time it was flooded by Lake Shasta in 1944, it was still home to 100 people. Like other gold rush towns in Northern California, it was established for mining and prospecting in the region in the 1950s, but it wasn't until a railroad camp was built in 1883, with over 1,000 Chinese laborers, that the population began to rise substantially. Gold was discovered nearby the next year, and a post office came in 1886. The largest copper smelter on the West Coast opened in 1950, and by 1911, over 3,000 people lived in town. The hills around the town were exfoliated and denuded by the acid fumes from the smelter, and farmers in the valley 15 miles away began a suit against the company that operated the smelter for destruction of their crops. The mines closed after the end of World War I, the smelter soon followed, and Kennett's population fell over the next 2 decades. The town now rests beneath 400 feet of water, along with many of the region's smelters, paint factories, and mines, and their surrounding despoiled soils. Number 17, Neversink, New York City. Neversink, whose fateful name is said to be derived from the Indian word Newasink, meaning continuously flowing, was the larger of 2 communities that were removed from the reservoir site in 1942. The other town was called Bittersweet, and there, a total of 340 people were evicted from the valley, and about 6,149 acres of land were condemned. Some buildings were relocated to nearby towns, though most were bulldozed and burned in a final harvest. Trees were removed, cellars were filled in, privies disinfected, and even barnyard manure was said to have been dug up to maintain New York City's reputation for having the finest quality drinking water possible. The Neversink Reservoir began to flood the land on June 4, 1953, and took 2 years to fill. Number 18, Butler, Tennessee. Butler was known to be the largest single community and the only incorporated town removed by the Tennessee Valley Authority, TVA, throughout that entire massive depression.
Notice how we were in New York and we went back, okay, because I thought, okay, 1, that's bad enough. 1 is too many. But Tennessee had a whole bunch, and we left Tennessee. Now we're back at Tennessee. Oh, there's 1 too many, right? Just to think of towns being under these lakes. They had to have these dams and flooded out these towns, and yeah, and to know that they doesn't sound like they were bulldozing. They're saying a lot of people are saying that a lot of these towns are still under the water. Oh, yeah, I don't know. It's horrible is what it is. Let's go.
Era public works project to modernize and electrify the rural parts of 7 southeastern United States. Butler was the commercial center for the Watauga Valley in eastern Tennessee, and the only real town in the region, with a population of around 600 people. It was a typical southern town with 2 barbershops, 2 beauty parlors, markets, the Bluebird Cafe, hardware store, drugstore, a few hotels, 3 churches, a rail station, Masonic Lodge, a Brick City Hall, bank, and doctors and dentist offices. Located in the forested hills of Appalachia, local industries were mostly wood-related and included a lumber company, a crating company, a furniture company, and a casket company. In 1948, when the floodgates were closed, the Watauga Dam and Reservoir began flooding 458 square miles along the Watauga River. With over 735 families already displaced, about 175 buildings, including shops, barns, churches, and homes, were moved to higher ground to a new town site named New Butler. Most buildings were demolished on site, and about 1,200 bodies were moved from the graveyards. Some families opted to leave the graves of their ancestors undisturbed, so they are still there, along with a reported slave graveyard that TVA crews never found. When Old Butler was exposed in the 1983 drawdown conducted to service the dam, Don Stout's shoe store, made of stone, and the one-room jailhouse, made of concrete, stood out from the other foundations and building pads along the muddy streets, still lined with trees, long dead but preserved by the water. Number 19, Enfield, Massachusetts. The scenic New England villages of Dana, Prescott, Greenwich, and Enfield were disincorporated on the same day, April 28, 1938. Over the next year, the valley was demolished and deforested by over 1,000 woodpeckers, immigrant workers from Boston, who at times ran amok in the doomed landscape, living in the vacated houses along the main streets, burning churches without authorization. Some of the old buildings were moved to other towns, but most were bulldozed into piles and burned, as was 30 square miles of forest. The valley was on fire for months. In all, just 2,500 people were relocated, and 7,000 bodies were reinterred from local cemeteries to higher ground. The Quabbin finished filling in 1946, and it had no flood control, electrical generation, or navigation functions. It was built for one purpose only, to serve the drinking water needs of Boston, 60 miles away. Still called the largest single-purpose reservoir in the nation, it served as the city's primary water source. Number 20, St. Thomas, Nevada. Like most of the early settlements in the desert Southwest, St. Thomas was established in an area of available water, in this case the comparatively lush Moapa Valley, 50 miles northeast of where Las Vegas is now. The town started as a Mormon outpost in 1865 and was later part of a chain of agricultural communities in the valley following the Muddy River, including Moapa, Logandale, and Overton, that were otherwise surrounded by arid desert. St. Thomas had a peak population of around 500 people, and for a while was known for producing cantaloupes and asparagus. A railway spur served the valley, and US 91, the main highway to Los Angeles before Interstate 15, went through town, making it a stop for motorists. In 1938, however, as Lake Mead crept northward, filling in behind the Boulder Dam, St. Thomas, located at a lower elevation at the southern end of the valley, was flooded. At the moment, due to regional drought conditions, portions of about 40 buildings are visible at the exposed remains of St. Thomas, including the Old School and the Hanig Ice Cream Parlor. Also visible is the foundation of the Gentry Hotel, where former President Herbert Hoover stayed in 1932 while inspecting the nearby construction project he had helped to create. Each of these towns represents a different element of America's development, yet they all share the same fate. They, and hundreds of other communities like them, were vacated, demolished, and flooded to make way for dams and reservoirs. Their remnants persist, preserved underwater, and sometimes emerge as haunting, painful reminders of what was not allowed to be.
Cut some dang checks. That's it. If you're going to kick black people out of their homes, make sure they have the money to stay on their feet. Cut a dang check.
In too many parts of the U.S., these ugly stains of the country's racism are being preserved while eliminating memories of the thriving black communities that once stood strong.
You can pay their descendants too, because generational wealth is one of the many things that is destroyed when you put black communities underwater. So cut a dang check.
These black ghost towns and communities once stood strong and tall as a testament to the strength, innovation, and independence of their residents until they were destroyed by white American mobs and government. However, as earlier mentioned at the start of this video, it's no mistake to say that the U.S. is a country that went from enslaving black people to wiping out the communities they built post-slavery. Today, most of its white citizens are prohibiting the teaching of that history, while simultaneously promoting a false account of that history. A good instance of this is seen in Florida's new African American Studies curriculum that teaches students that enslaved people saw personal benefit from their captivity. It is a heartbreaking testament to the legacy of racist cruelty that too many Americans insist on upholding. In order to create a better black society,
Yeah, that's pretty sad when they try to paint the picture that, yeah, slavery, no, that was more like the hired help. No, weren't getting paid for that. No.
we all have to come together to share and confront the pains and plight of African Americans, both in the past and in this modern era. This brings us to the end of yet another sobering video that highlights the hidden histories of Black life in the U.S. Don't forget to kindly support us by hitting the thumbs up button in front of you. Share this video.
Well, there you have it. That definitely opened my eyes to some history that I didn't know about. I didn't know that so many towns were hidden under lakes. So many lakes were started when the towns had to move away, and they even said it in there when they were told to, hey, we need the value of your house, and then they were giving them less than what they were saying the value was. So they were getting ripped off at the end of the day. And how sad is it that you're already thriving in your town, and then you're being asked to move away to the unknown. You don't know how. Now you got to start all over somewhere else. All these towns that were thriving, and it's a shame. But again, somebody's horror spot could very well be your favorite leisure spot. What's under the lake? You know, what's under the lake that you guys are swimming at, kayaking at, boating at, fishing at? I know that's new to me, and I didn't know that so many places, like I said, I just learned about the one in Georgia, but didn't know there were so many, and that's sad. Like I said, one is too many. One is definitely too many. Thriving towns just thrown away. So then I look at today, I won't get into that, and I'm like, wow, the struggle's real. But they were thriving, and that was just taken away from them. That was literally washed away. But I took up enough of your time, and I hope that this added value, and I hope that you learned something today. Again, when somebody's celebrating, when you see people celebrating for that plantation that burned down, just think somebody's history is in that. Somebody's ancestors were in that whole plantation, suffering inside and outside. You know, so nobody's celebrating because we like to see a fire, but yeah, for that one, I have to say, even for myself, it's a slap in the face to see people enjoying a place where people suffered. But at the end of the day, I'm going to wrap that up right here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and go ahead and share it. And just know that at LUKE-N-SHAE'S Place, we want you to know that your mental health is important. A positive mentality is a destined reality. Wear your smile. Stay blessed. Be careful where you're having fun at. Maybe do some research. And wear your smile. Until next time, take care.